Alrighty, I believe we are off and rolling. All-time greats, the ATG podcast. Welcome to the league. This is a podcast for the league, and we're going to be going over our great dynasty league that we've been running for many years. We have Russell Howell, Nate Matthews, and John Miller here. How's it going, guys?
Great.
Guys,
I don't know if I said that in order of importance, though.
I think you nailed it.
it's all subjective. It's okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe in the league context, it might still be Nate, Russ, Miller. No?
I like that.
You don't think so, Russ?
I'm not sure
I
where you're
agree.
going.
Two to
Where you're
one.
going with that.
Well, that's a pretty decent segue for what we're going to be starting it off with here on this particular episode. We're going to be talking about the rosters of every team in our long-standing league, what we think about their prospects going forward, how they got there. So we're going to do some player debates and also some trade discussions, grading a few trades. And we actually get to point out a bad trade by Nate, which is fun because that doesn't happen very often.
What? It never happened.
We're going to go ahead and get started with, like I said, I still think Nate is the number one in league history at this point. I've affectionately mentioned you guys as the Titans, maybe not so affectionately, but it's starting to catch on around the league that you two are the Titans because you guys have been a power in the league for so long. And so let's start with Nate's
Give me some knuckles,
team.
Russ. Give me some knuckles.
I do have to say, if you're talking historically, I have to defer to Nate. He has one more than I have one. So historically, Nate gets the props.
I know that hurts, Russ. I know
It does.
Right.
Well,
It does.
you know,
It says nothing about this season that's about to begin or the next 5 years that I'm going to dominate. But looking backwards, I give the nod to Nate.
We're going to talk when we get to your team second there, Russ, about how I feel like you kind of let that happen. So let's see.
I'm not
Let's
sure
see.
I'll be part of this show anymore.
So 5 and dime, Nate Matthews. We're going to see pretty early on here why he's been able to dominate to the level that he has. Josh Allen, recent breakout. Zeke Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, consensus number one running back in redraft for sure. And I would say pretty. Go ahead, Russ.
I'm going to say thanks, Dylan, for that.
The worst trade in the entirety of the league's history for sure, and I'm grateful for that because I made one that's in the running. But I definitely think that the trade that you pulled off, Nate, for Christian McCaffrey, I think even Dylan would admit is the worst trade the league has ever seen.
That's a segment all of its own. We can talk about each of our worst trades. That would be.
That would be. Yeah, we've all made one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good segment. I look forward to that one. Not really. But I was going to say that Christian McCaffrey is probably still considered the dynasty RB1, although there are some people who would put him in the top three and not necessarily at the very top. But he's still, what, 25?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think in most cases he's going to be there. But we see pretty early on why you're so dominant because you have two of the legitimate contenders for the wide receiver one as well. Nobody would really put Josh Allen as the top of the list at quarterback, and Russ knows who the top of the list at quarterback is. Everybody else does listening too. But say that again.
I don't
Nate?
think I disagree with already what you're saying because you're saying I'm dominant because of these players, but most of these players have been on my team for 1 year.
That's very true.
Josh Allen was 1 year, AJ Brown 1 year, Jefferson I haven't got to play yet, Waller's 2 years, CEH 1 year.
Your ability to manage the team is what's kept you there. But I would still say if you didn't have AJ Brown now, you didn't have Justin Jefferson now, you may not be considered a Titan anymore because you'd be without your two biggest weapons.
I don't know if they're my biggest weapons.
I just hear that Nate's slipping. That's all I heard from that.
Well, the point of what I was saying was extremely positive in that I think that there's a debate to be had here, and I'm curious what you think, Nate, about who the wide receiver one is. Do you feel like they're on your team because you have two legit candidates here, or do you feel like they're on Donnie's team, Tyreek Hill?
Well, okay, I probably approach Dynasty in two different ways, and this is something about the rankings that I've never agreed with whatsoever. there's definitely a win now ranking system and a dynasty looking forward ranking system. If you're building a win now team, I think Tyreek Hill is the number one. But if you're building a dynasty league for, to go on and have future success, I really think AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson are the two to have.
Does that come down to age or size?
Age.
Because he's still a relatively young man, 27, I believe.
Tyreek Hill, I believe so.
But I think maybe there might be a size argument to be made there. How long does he hold up? Does he last as long as some receivers have into the 30s with his style of play? So I could definitely see that. So which one would you choose?
Historically, those in fantasy, those speed receivers are really the first ones to lose their mojo. That the speed's not something that sticks around with you. But with Tyreek Hill, I do think it's more than just speed. I mean, the guy's good.
Before I make Nate choose between which one of his babies is the wide receiver one in long-term non-win now dynasty, since he said Tyreek is the win now dynasty or wide receiver one, which one would you choose, Russ?
If I had to, I'd go AJ Brown. And I think that simply comes down to, obviously Jefferson had a magnificent rookie season. I wonder if that will ultimately be the best season of his career. Whereas we've seen AJ Brown for a couple of years now be incredibly efficient and productive. So if I had to choose between the two, I would still lean towards AJ Brown.
Nate, there was a little bit of shade thrown at Justin Jefferson in that analysis as he picked the other one of yours to be the top dynasty wide receiver. So it's a little bit of give and take. I'd expect nothing less from the two of you. But what do you think about that?
It hurts my heart, but I completely agree with Russ. I mean, I could poke holes in Jefferson all day long. I mean, what he did his rookie year was absolutely incredible. Are those numbers repeatable? Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. He probably has had his best. I wouldn't say his best season yet, but just his maybe second best season. But there's questions on that team with the quarterback and moving forward. And I mean, Cousins is Cousins. We don't know if he's going to be there next year, and so you could poke holes and that all day long. But Jefferson, the talent is real, but you could have all the talent in the world. But I mean, if you got some bozo quarterback throwing you the ball, it's not going to work out either way, unless you're Hopkins, then he's just the GOAT. But when it comes to AJ Brown, I mean, just the fact that that he's going to be there learning from his idol, Julio Jones. And he's got, the GOAT as his quarterback in Tannehill. I think that all the arrows are pointing up for him for his career.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Tyreek Hill is still my wide receiver one in any dynasty list, whether it's win now or not, honestly, because you mentioned an aspect that we're going to end up talking about at some point, which is planning team construction, and not just this year, but in years down the road. That quarterback position is just going to be money for Tyreek forever, and in dynasty we got to look 3-4 years out at the most. And I think for the next 3-4 years, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be an absolute beast because the Chiefs are going to be an absolute beast.
John, let me ask you a question. Who would you comp Tyreek Hill to?
Nobody. Tyreek Hill is absolutely unique, and because he was a running back coming out, there's nobody like Tyreek Hill. He's extremely explosive. The guy's insane with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Who would you comp him to?
A little Deshaun,
Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, with the speed and just being able to burn people on the outside.
Sure.
He probably doesn't have the slant routes that he has, but like I said before, when it comes down to those wide receivers that just are mainly speed guys, well, I'm not saying Tyreek is entirely a speed guy. That speed is the first thing to go, and I think when the downturn does happen, it'll happen faster for him than most other wide receivers.
Any thoughts on that, Nate? I mean, Russ?
Well, I have thoughts, but not on that. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand on here. I don't know how to use Zoom well enough. I couldn't figure it out. But if I'm Ian, I'm watching this and a little upset that Devontae Adams is not even part of this conversation. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know that there are questions around Aaron Rodgers, but what a monster year he had last year, was pivotal to, an Ian's championship run. And if we're downgrading him because of Rodgers, I get it. But
Also age.
I think
He's
it's
going to be 29.
Yeah, I hear you. But John was just talking about a 3-year window, and a guy of, Devontae is not purely a little speed guy.
Oh no,
He's
Devontae Adams.
got size, he's got chops, and 32 is not a cliff by any means.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, and one of the great route runners in the game, he's made himself into, and his hands are great after starting off really, really horribly. I mean, he was dropped in this league. You mentioned Ian has him now, but he wasn't drafted with in Ian's team. Ian ended up lucking out and picking him up because that's how bad he was early on in his career. But I think the other aspect of
Wait, who
Devontae
dropped him?
I don't remember offhand, but
I could have swore Ian drafted him. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
It wasn't Ian. No, but the other aspect is he's never really stayed healthy. He's always been very, very impressive, but he's never really stayed healthy either, Devontae Adams. And when you combine that with, if you're going to put the 29-year-olds into the conversation, I think DeAndre Hopkins has even more of a claim to being up there than he does. Also partially because of the quarterback situation, which you already brought up for sure. But yeah, I agree with the rankings that you guys said. AJ Brown over Justin Jefferson for sure. Even though we'll have to see if AJ Brown himself can stay healthy. Darren Waller, obviously an elite tight end. One of the things we're going to see is that Mo Better, which is Russ, and Five and Dime, which is Nate, have hoarded the elite tight ends, and there's only one elite tight end that doesn't reside on their roster, which is kind of scary and ridiculous, and speaks to the way in which you guys have built up your teams. Broncos D is just meh. Clyde Edwards-Helaire still a player that I believe in, and I think one hell of a flex. Obviously, just an incredible offense there, and the depth on both of you guys' team. Another theme that we're going to see from these guys. There's nobody to drop. You can't barely make a trade with Nate or Russ because they don't have anybody that they can drop. So they're ready to win now. They have been winning now, and they are incredible. I don't know that there's too much more we need to say about Five and Dime, but do you guys have anything you want to add before we jump to your team, Russ?
No, I don't think so.
No, we could talk about my team all day.
We definitely could. And I certainly think the thank you to Potter mentioned there in the DeAndre Hopkins could certainly be mentioned in the Justin Jefferson camp as well.
That's true. Yes.
No better.
Wait, one before we move on, I'm just going to say it. Terry McLaurin's going to be the next DeAndre Hopkins.
Terry McLaurin.
I've said it. He's going to be moving up over the years.
I believe
why are you comparing him to DeAndre Hopkins?
Play style, the career path that they both taken, quarterbacks that they've had. The numbers are almost exactly the same for the first 2 years. I mean, like exactly the same in receptions, yards, touchdowns. Just very similar career path so far.
All right. So from a number standpoint, I think they play very, very differently personally. But
the area in which I find similarity is just how great they are at each level of the route, at their route trees. They're such amazing route runners. I think McLaurin's he's a little bit underrated in his contested catch. That's obviously where Nuke just destroys. And that's not McLaurin, but and McLaurin's obviously significantly faster. Yep. But both studs. It'll be an interesting study, Nate. That's the second time I've heard you make that comparison. It'll be an interesting study because McLaurin's on a significantly more defensive oriented team than Nuke ever was, and so that'll be interesting to see if he can reach those elite levels on a team that may be.
I don't know if I agree with that because the Houston Texans defense was really good when who was that one boner they had thrown to him? I can't even remember his name.
It's a long list.
Be more specific.
That's true.
Awful boners. There's a lot of boners.
So Nate, I want to nail you down on that a little bit. So where does McLaurin finish this year, end of season wide receiver rankings?
Oh, that's kind of crazy. I think he has top 5 potential with Fitzpatrick, but who knows what happens after that? Who knows if Fitzpatrick is going to be there another year? Who knows if Fitzpatrick's going to be healthy? The whole
So
year.
top 5 potential. Are you calling for a top 5 year this year?
I would say top 7 or 8, realistically.
Put it in the notes. Somebody write that down.
Yep, that would be a good one to keep track of as we go along. And I know, and just so we peel the curtain back, everybody, for those of you guys who don't remember, McLaurin was a Russell Howell stock that then was traded to, I believe, Green, if I'm not mistaken, and then by way of Green found his way to Nate, because Russ would have never traded McLaurin to Nate in a million years.
First of all, I don't trade with Russ, period. Anyway, and the second Russ traded him away, I was after him. I was making offers that day.
Oh yeah, I noticed that for sure. Yeah, Nate would not approach me about McLaurin. No way.
No, he was horrible when he was on your team. He's the GOAT when he's on mine.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Well, the players that do remain on Russ's team are, I think the next team we talk about here owns a legitimate claim to a championship contender as well. But you could definitely say that Russ's team is up there with with absolute contenders. Probably, I don't know. It's 1-1A between you two on who I think is more likely to win. And I do think the next team is a legit 1C, but that big reason why is Pat Mahomes, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, who actually you spent a lot of the year last year waiting on Russ. And I think there might've been at least some percentage of your mind thinking about trading him away, and you were holding on to him. You held on to him and it worked out well. Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, who you mentioned before the start of the show that you think belongs in the wide receiver 1 discussion. So let's stop there for a second. I don't agree. I don't think DK Metcalf belongs in the wide receiver 1 discussion, because I think I'd put every receiver that we've talked about so far ahead of him. The wide receiver 1, not a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, but I just don't think he belongs there. What do you guys think?
I think he would have the potential to be on a different team. I think the talent, the raw talent, is just unbelievable. With
Terry McLaurin.
But I don't trust Pete Carroll. I just don't like that guy. I don't. That Russ Cook thing. I mean, that was a thing there for a second, but quickly fizzled out. And it's a run first team, and we'll see how that works out for his career.
Russ?
Well, if we recall from the first half of last year's season when Russ was cooking, I believe Metcalf was top 5 already at age 22. I mean, the guy's physical abilities are unquestioned. He's already produced 2 years in a row. And then, yes, Seattle's offense went in the gutter the final half of the season. And I blame that a lot on the system and the play calling. Waldron has come in. And one thing that the Rams have done consistently with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods is getting them the ball in space and letting them create after the catch. And if we can start getting more touches from Metcalf, he's already a beast in the red zone. I think his rookie year, he had like 17 targets in the red zone. That's why I traded for him. In a standard league where touchdowns are so important, he's going to be a beast for years in the red zone. If they start getting him more targets and letting him create after the catch, we saw his speed. I understand why he's not in the conversation right now, because the second half of the year he tanked. But if we're talking about looking forward and we're taking in the whole picture, I think we could be feeling very differently at the end of this coming season.
Nate?
Yeah. And like I said, the potential is obviously there. I mean, the guy is absolutely incredible. He's a beast. I don't even think covers this man. But at the same time, when week 17 against San Francisco, three receptions, the Rams held him to 6, Washington held him to 5. The Jets 6 for 61, a touchdown saved him there. I just don't trust the offense. He's on the wrong team. I mean, man, imagine that guy with Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he would be the number 1, and there would be no stopping him. You can't tackle him with your arms. You need 2 guys to bring that man down. And a red zone threat. I don't know if there's a better receiver out there. That's probably maybe AJ Brown could rival him in the red zone, but dude's a beast.
Yeah, and I think the offensive coordinator is an angle that not very many people are talking about. That's a good point you bring up, Russ, because I think everybody heard. There's been so much made about how they changed offensive coordinators because Pete Carroll wants to go more run heavy, but there could very well be that the offensive coordinator they chose to bring in may actually could be a boon for the passing game, which would be unexpected. But we've seen reports recently that could lead that to be a more prevalent talking discussion as we go down the road.
Yep. Yeah, it totally, that's a key factor. Again, I'm not offended that he's not in that conversation right now. And so much is going to come down to how they use him and how that passing game shifts under Waldron. If it goes the way I'm hoping, based on what we've seen in LA, I'm feeling pretty good about his prospects.
And Stephon Diggs is one that we're going to bring up in the trade discussions. Part of it, obviously, an absolute beast. Travis Kelce, a big reason. The Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes is just the gift that keeps on giving for Russ. There's no question about that. And unprecedented tight end one levels for Travis Kelce, literally never seen before in history, and much has already been made of that. Cam Akers is another one that you already that we talked about. You waited on Jonathan Taylor. You waited even longer for Cam Akers, and both of them right now are looking like they are the truth going forward. And any team that has Michael Thomas on the bench, Jalen Hurts on the bench, DJ Moore on the bench, Joe Mixon on the bench, Kareem Hunt, Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts on the bench is a team that I don't even really like very much. Like, that's it's awful.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you, John Miller.
Greatness across the board here, obviously, and I like the defense better too. Not that that matters a whole lot. I think we probably in Dynasty are moving in a direction where kickers and defenses maybe shouldn't even be included. But they are here.
I've been saying it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But they are here, and the Washington D is great. That's for sure. Any thoughts on Nate's team before we move on to the team three? I mean, Russ's team, Nate, before we move on to the team three.
Well, go ahead, Nate. But I have a question for you, John, before you move on. But go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no, Russ has built a hell of a team. I mean, he really has, top to bottom. It's a great team. He's really done a good job with it. He definitely has players on his team that I don't believe in one little bit, but it's probably the same with him for mine. So you could poke holes in either one of our rosters.
Oh, for sure. But the problem that you guys have is if something doesn't work out, if those holes turn out to be true, you just plug in the next stud, which really pisses me off. And the thing about it is with Russ in particular, I think, Nate, you may be getting there. You've had quarterbacks who could be getting there, but in fantasy, the big downside to having Patrick Mahomes in normal circumstances is you have to give up something in some other spot to get him, and that's the problem that we are having as a league, is that Russ does not have that down, is not dealing with any kind of lesser production from any other position as a result of having the QB1. He's just got studs everywhere, and he
was QB4 in this scoring format. He was QB4 last year.
Well, let's hope that keeps up.
It won't.
What was your question, Russ?
Well, John, you alluded to an observation and evaluation about last year. I think I know where you're going and how it affects my championship run, right? Something to that effect.
Yeah. Let's just call it like it is. You had a chance to leapfrog Nate as the top in history of this league. You guys have both been the dominant ones. And
missed it by that much.
And you missed it. And the reason why you missed it, in my opinion, I'm not saying it was a bad choice, honestly, because you chose to do what many successful dynasty owners do choose to do. And you competed now, and you made sure that you didn't sacrifice your future. You kept building up. You have probably the best future outlook of anybody in this league with the number of first round picks you have coming down the pipe and whose first round picks you have. And you've built yourself up impressively in that way, but you could have used that very impressive wealth of picks to upgrade some spots, because I think if you're being honest with yourself, you could say you had spots to be upgraded for the stretch run in the playoffs, and you chose not to do that. So we'll never know if you would have kicked down the door for championship number 2 if you would have chose to do some reckless spending to be able to make sure that door got kicked down.
Go on, John. Keep going.
Well, I mean, I think that is the crux of it, and it's a different. How do you want to manage your team? You know, and you are in a position that I haven't been in this league where you own the league. You and Nate and this third person, I think, owns a claim to it, to the future prospects of this league. And how do you manage a team within that space where you are the team to beat?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew of this critique held by you, John, and it's a fair one. It's absolutely a fair one. And if we're talking about philosophy and approach, right or wrong, I am really hesitant to mortgage my future for the present because we never know how it's going to pan out, right? There have been deals that I have weighed and ultimately passed on and regretted temporarily. And then that guy in week 15 sprains an ankle and he misses the playoffs or underperforms. And the reality is it is very difficult to predict once you get into playoffs what's going to happen. John Miller, in my opinion, you stole a championship from Nate. Absolute thievery. Your roster.
Everyone has stole a championship from me.
Well, some more than others.
Place finishes or what?
And John, I say this with the utmost respect that you won it. It was an incredible effort on your part to get that championship. But I thought Nate's roster was infinitely better than yours at that time.
Infinitely.
But you won that championship. And so it's a total gamble once you get into it. And so I kind of feel like if you're like, my goal is probably finish top 4 during the season and get into the playoffs. And then we have no idea what's going to happen after that point. So I'm not going to mortgage my future to get from, on paper, number 2 to number 1 for a 3-week period. Because if I don't win that championship, now how much have I sacrificed in my team's strength going forward in a dynasty league, right? If we're talking redraft and there's no future year repercussions, then go all out. But in a dynasty, I personally am going to probably be more cautious and be more mindful about the big picture. I'm not going to sacrifice my contending rights, but I'm not going to spend recklessly because there's no guarantee that that's going to be profitable. So,
and in Russ's defense last year, he did go against Alvin Kamara in that 6 touchdown game. That was just legendary in fantasy.
That is very true.
Who knows what last year would have turned out like?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? And that wasn't for the championship, but if it were, how pissed would I be that I gave up all of that equity only to have Kamara score 6 touchdowns and flush it all down the toilet?
No, it is absolutely correct. And to add on to your rebuttal, in most cases, Nate turned me on to a YouTube channel, the Fantasy Stock Exchange, recently.
Not the only time I've turned him on, by the way.
There's been many times Nate has turned me on. But they recently had a discussion. They answered a question this was the same question in 2 different ways. One said they would trade 4 first-round picks for a guarantee that they were going to win the championship, or for at least a really good shot at it. And one of them said, no, I probably wouldn't trade more than 2 to be able to have a shot at it. And two people running the same channel with 2 different takes on it. And the other aspect would be that the person you would probably have to trade all the picks to would be Nate, who is one of your other heavy contenders as well. We have a pretty tightly concentrated level of studs currently in the league, and it would have been you would have really had to pay through the nose to end up upgrading any one of your spots, to your point.
Right. Well, and what's key there is you said for a shot, and I felt like I still had a shot with the roster I had. Even though Barkley was out and Thomas was out, and you know what I mean? Like, we all have our sob stories. I feel like I missed some pretty pivotal players last year, but I still think I had a shot, which is part of the difference too.
Most definitely. So on to the third member of the dominant group, and that is Pickle Rick, Ian. And I think the reigning champion. He's the reason why we're able to have this conversation about what could you guys have done to topple Pickle Rick, because he legitimately has a stake going forward to being one of the dominant teams. And if he does win it again, I'm not saying he's going to, but if he does win it again, if Devontae Adams, to your earlier points, and Aaron Rodgers, Russ, if he does come back and play, which a lot of people have doubted recently, but I still think is possible. If those guys ride again, and these studs, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, roll through the league like they did in a standard league, having just world beaters at running back like Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry is what he was, what won him the league. Obviously, Rodgers' MVP year and Devontae Adams doing incredible things added on to that as well. But whenever you have that, he's got a legitimate shot of winning it again.
Yeah, I got to give Ian credit. Over the start of this league, when was it that what was Derrick Henry's rookie year? Was it 4 years ago?
Sounds right. 5. I'm not certain.
I'm pretty sure it was. I must have sent him, I don't know how many offers for Henry. And I know other people have too. Before he started breaking out, he stuck true to him. I mean, he held on to him and believed in him, and he was right. He was right about that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
there's no start for King Henry.
Yeah, within the time with DeMarco Murray, there's nobody that believed in Derrick Henry that I saw more than Ian, and he's reaped the benefits across multiple leagues because of it. It's been great to see.
Mm-hmm.
He also ended up drafting Trevor Lawrence the way we let it fall in the draft. He had the last pick of the first round, and he still was able to get Trevor Lawrence. As you can see, the rookies on ESPN still don't have their pictures yet, but I thought that was pretty impressive for him, especially since Aaron Rodgers was already doubtful or the really up in the air for him to end up with the.
I don't know. I think that was more of he had to draft Trevor Lawrence at that point. He had to backed into a corner there. I mean, Ian's team is just absolutely incredible. I mean, the way he's managed it is very impressive. But he's definitely got an age issue. You know, his team is up there in age, and it'll be interesting to see the trades he makes over the next year or two to start getting younger again and start rebuilding. But right now, he's the reigning champion. He kicked the hell out of me. More credit to him. He's got a good team, and it's hard. Anytime you go against Russ, you're watching that Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey stack. That it's the best stack in all of fantasy. But with Ian here, I mean, Dalvin Cook and Henry, oh my gosh, you could get 6 touchdowns a week out of those guys combined.
Big time.
He's tough to beat.
Absolutely he is. And you mentioned how he built his team. He one of the people who didn't do it by trading away all of his firsts. He still has all of his future capital
I don't know if there's another team in our league that has more of their original roster than Ian. I could probably maybe wrong about that, but I mean, a lot of these guys have been on his team for many years. I mean, I seem to turn them over pretty quick, and Russ does too, but this guy just believes in his players, and it's definitely worked out for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He does. And he has picked up some first round picks in recent years as well. I mean, he may end up regretting the Russell Wilson trade, but I felt like getting a first round pick from Green for Russell Wilson when he did was a really good move, especially when he was able to later end up drafting, like we said, the best prospect since Andrew Luck in Trevor Lawrence to back up Rodgers, who could still play somewhere.
Yep.
Andrew Luck, man.
Ooh,
I knew that'd get a smile out of you, John.
Hey, as soon as Russ mentioned the championship year, I mean, whatever you can say about when I drafted Andrew Luck, which was a horrible reach on my part on the startup. Andrew Luck was my quarterback, and when I won the championship, and you know how little I won the championship by, Nate, and so I wouldn't have been able to do it without Andrew Luck.
1 foot. Yeah,
that's right, and I wouldn't have been. I still remember the pass from Russell Wilson to who was
Baldwin. Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin. Yeah, I wanted to say Lockett, but it was somebody. It was Baldwin flash from the pass.
Oh, I came out of my seat when that was in the air. Oh man! And then when he fell on the 1 foot line, I about cried.
Just 1 yard too short. I needed every bit of what Andrew Luck gave me, and Travis Kelce too. I had some ballers on that team, but definitely Andrew Luck was one that I had to at least bring up once.
Before you move off of Ian, I'd like to share my take on Ian's team. So again, fantastic team. You look at the top of that lineup in particular, right? Aaron, Cook, Henry, Adams. That was on fire last year.
Yeah, last year. It's almost unbeatable.
Yeah, 2 years. I think if not for injuries, right, he might have been the first repeat champion, because 2 years ago, it was only injuries, right? Dalvin Cook has not been the healthiest. Derrick Henry's actually held up pretty well. People keep talking about him going down, but right. has not been the healthiest. And he's a little top heavy. And so last year, I just kept waiting. I was extremely confident that at least one of those guys was going to go down at some point, and then that was going to be the difference. And I was going to be able to overtake. If he had half the injuries I had, then I had a shot at Ian. And none of those guys went down, and he rode him to victory. And so it'll be interesting to see if those guys can hold up again this year, because if they do, he's going to be tough to beat once again.
I'll tell you right now, the disrespect on Henry and his fantasy standing is real. I mean, how could you? I've seen people rank him as a number 7, number 8 in Dynasty, and sometimes even redraft. That is insane. I mean,
Everybody's
this
still
guy,
predicting the cliff, right? They every year.
yeah, stand in front of
They're
that man.
in that much further, right?
I'm
It
not
wasn't
doing
last year. It must be this year.
There's not a defender in the world that could tackle that man one-on-one.
It's very true, and part of it is when they say he's going to wear down is that you don't really watch Derrick Henry play if you think he's going to wear down for sure, because he basically just runs straight up and just shoves everybody down.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't take a whole lot of damage. He really doesn't.
Well, and in standard, right, all he has to do is fall into the end zone, and he could do that for another 7 years.
Yes, he could. Yes, he could. Absolutely.
I mean, look at the end of his season. You got him week 14, 26 carries for 250 yards. Week 15, 24 carries for 147. 16, 23 carries for 98. 17, 34 carries for 250 yards. He didn't slow down. He sped up.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, and their offense only got better. The Julio Jones trade is fantastic for not only Ryan Tannehill, but also for Derrick Henry. You guys, as the ones who share the top of the league right now, I'm gonna let you choose who comes next, because I think I would like you guys to choose who you think is another contender next on the list of contenders.
Well, I know who I would go with.
Me too,
sure.
and I think Nate and I are in agreement.
Yeah, it's Dylan.
Dylan,
Absolutely Dylan.
Dylan the Gray.
Honestly, it's hard not to be a fan of the way he's built his team, the way he plans for the future. The guy's probably more into college football than any of us. I'm always impressed with what he has to say about players, and he probably will talk less now that I've said that. But his team is, I mean, you look at the average age. I mean, it's a dynasty dream. It really is.
yeah, and you talked about. Sorry, Nate. Was it Nate I interrupted? Sorry.
No, I was done.
Okay. You talked about Ian's conviction around Derrick Henry, and the thing that I respect and hate about Dylan is that he is deeply rooted in his convictions around his players, and if he's in on somebody, he will not even consider moving them. And I feel like that's half of his roster. Half of his roster, I feel like he is deeply committed to and will not even consider moving. And I have tried and tried to weaken his grip on some of these players, and he will not budge. And
I was talking about it. I've done it a couple times.
He's absolutely right, though. He definitely gets locked in on players and will not trade them. There's the blockbuster trade with you recently, Nate. Not all that recently anymore, but he really has held on to him, and he's gonna stick to it. That's how he operates. And like you said, Nate, he's somebody who looks well ahead at these players when they're in college, and he really gets a sense for who they are before we even see him play in the NFL. Tua Tagovailoa is a guy who I've talked to him recently about trading, and he's a guy that everybody in the league is down on, and he's a guy that I think most people that drafted Tua, maybe not most, but a higher percentage than you would get from most prospects who drafted Tua last year have probably looked into dealing him, but not Dylan. Dylan believed in him when he drafted him, and he's going to hold on to him and see what he's got this year when he could actually have a pretty legit bounce back.
I made a run at him quite a while ago and not considering it. Yep. Yeah, I think Dylan's an example of how to rebuild with discipline, and it's really paying off. He's trading for picks. He's keeping picks. He's capitalizing on those picks. He's being patient about it and not mortgaging his future. And he's built a really strong up and coming team. And I think he's definitely on the rise.
A lot has been made about how the 2020 the 2020 class really is a great building block to grab as many 2020 players as you possibly can, and he really is the guy in our league who's done that most of all. Just a slew, and Nate already mentioned it, just a dynasty wet dream up and down the board on his roster.
I said dynasty dream. I didn't go as far to call it a wet dream. Just
Look, don't turn me on as often as you do if you don't want me to take it up another notch. The Kyler Murray is the one who I'm really looking forward to seeing him continue to play, because as we said on your team, Russ, when you have a high level elite quarterback, you usually have to sacrifice some position, but there isn't a position of sacrifice on Dylan's squad if everybody continues to play like they look like they're going to play. And I think Kyler, and I'm not obviously not the only one at all, but I think Kyler is ready to step up and be that QB2.
Yeah, I don't
either.
Don't at all. I was the one that traded him, Kyler Murray, and I'm not a believer in him at all.
Bring it on.
Let's hear it. He's going to get killed out there. One day he'll be decapitated by a linebacker, and it's not going to be good.
So is it just based on size that you're
size? Yeah. I'm a big guy,
Russ.
and size in football don't matter at what position. And I mean, don't get me wrong. When that guy's on the field and playing his A game, he's incredible. I don't think there's a better running quarterback in the league. And yes, I'm Lamar Jackson. I'm taking that in consideration, but you watch the guy cut left to right. I mean, it's so much fun to watch, and his takeoff speed is just incredible, but he's going to get killed.
Russell,
but
you were saying
he has Trey Lance sitting right behind him, who I think is going to be really good too. And I'm not a big believer in Tua. You guys might like him, but I don't at all. But but Lance is going to be good for him.
I agree that he drafted Lance over Lawrence, and I actually thought that was a pretty good pick. But Russ, you shook your head no when I asked Nate if it was just about the size for Kyler.
So I think Kyler's amazing. There are some guys who strike me as not incredibly intelligent or mature, and that's Kyler Murray to me. And I feel like he's already been in a wide open system. He's already had weapons at his disposal, and he still hasn't quite gotten there. And I'm just not sure that he's ever going to be one of those guys that really takes the full next step to being elite in the league.
Well, I think you guys both couldn't be more wrong. Honestly, I think we are in a.
That's why we have this podcast.
I think we're in a time in the NFL where the quarterback is at its most protected, and I think you can run as much as Kyler runs. There's not a lot of design runs from Kyler either. He runs off script, very little design runs, but he runs off script a lot. And I think he's going to get stronger and stronger. I think he's going to get smarter and smarter. I don't agree on the intelligence, honestly. I think he's actually very up to par on that scope, very football smart. But I think he's got the next elite. I think he's the next one to join the elite group of quarterbacks, because the proof is in what he did before he got hurt. Now, if you hold fast to the he's going to get hurt again and again philosophy, then he's not going to get there. But if he didn't get hurt last year, he would have been the MVP of the league. I really believe that.
So maybe he's right that takedown as well, because we disagree on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's going to be a fun one to watch continue to unfold. And in another episode, we're going to talk about broken down players that we really feel like are done or are 1 year away from being done. And they just added AJ Green, which is going to be on that list. Spoiler alert for me. And I mean, it doesn't matter one bit, because all they're doing is saying they're going to keep throwing the ball, and their defense is still not going to be good enough for them to need to do anything other than keep throwing the ball. And they certainly haven't added a running back that makes me think that they're going to stop throwing the ball. So it's going to be all Kyler all the time.
Kyler is the best running back on that team.
Yes,
that's for sure. And that's unquestionable.
Speaking of running back, when I look at Dylan's team, so he's got two great young running backs in DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins. Ooh. And I think his season largely will be dictated by what happens with those two, because DeAndre Swift team situation certainly hasn't improved this year. And there's still
Gibson's going to
questions.
finish better than both those guys.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, I agree. But I think J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift both have more questions than Gibson does, which is why I'm saying it may hinge on those two. Because I think they're both incredibly talented. But DeAndre Swift, that offense may struggle.
Yeah.
And that's not going to help him. And Dobbins, how many touches are they going to give him? What is Gus Edwards' role? Are they really going to throw it to the backs more? Is Lamar Jackson going to seed carries in the red zone? I think if those guys outperform projections, his team is going to be legit. If they underperform, I think that's going to be a big hit. And with, running backs only have so many years. And so you hate to see them frittered away by bad situations.
I agree on Swift in the short term, at least. What do you think? Right. What do you think, Matthews?
I agree. I did trade him Dobbins for a reason. I was high on Dobbins going into that draft. After really stepping back and taking a look at the situation there in Baltimore, I felt that he was a guy I could trade away and be okay with it. I mean, the guy's talent is just undeniable, but again, he's one of those players I just believe is on the wrong team. If this guy was on some other team, he would be smashing it, but when you got the quarterback that he has stealing those carries and instead of checking down, taking off, it's just, I don't know what the ceiling is for Dobbins.
I think that's one that we disagree on, because both of you, I'm hearing negative takes on Dobbins, and in a standard league, which we have, I think that could be one that you'll regret trading because we've seen Dobbins on a pace for double-digit touchdowns last year, and we've seen the year before that the running back position score double-digit touchdowns. So if you think the Ravens' offense is still going to be great, then I think Dobbins is going to be great, because you mentioned the talent, and I worry about him in PPR, but we're not a PPR league.
Yeah, but the double-digit touchdowns, I mean, he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight games without scoring a touchdown last year, and that's what I'm worried about. Those touchdowns really came late in the year, and if was Gus down at one point during that, something happened why he got a little bit more carries.
Edwards,
but he's just a guy in fantasy. I'm not staying away from him in fantasy whatsoever, but he's not one of the guys that I trust.
Yeah, and I also like Dobbins, and I'm not so much saying that I don't like Dobbins. I'm saying I think his team swings on those two, because I think they have the most volatility, right? They could be amazing. They could underperform a little bit because of their situation. I think his team's going to largely be dictated by what ends up happening with those two players.
And I'll throw out an unnecessary disclaimer, because I'm sure you guys are already viewing this through that filter, but you're going to want to take the word of the Titans anytime we disagree. The next one on the list, I don't know if you guys agree, but I believe is the next contender, and that is Mischief managed, which is under new management, mischievous management. Travis, I think, has shown in his recent dealings that he is going to make his team even more win now than it was before, and it was already a win now team when he took it on. He's upgraded some spots and upgraded the running back 2 spot with the acquisition of Aaron Jones, which I don't know if you guys agree, but I think Aaron Rodgers or no Aaron Rodgers, I think that was an upgrade over Miles Sanders, which was his RB2, and he upgraded the tight end position with Logan Thomas, who he basically had nobody. Whether you like Thomas or you don't like Thomas, he basically didn't have a tight end before, and I think he upgraded that position there. So he's put himself in a better position to win this year than he was when he took the team on.
And win this year, he better, because those 3 running backs are all in their second contracts. I mean, he's got a great team, no doubt. But the same thing, like I pointed out with Ian, the average age is really up there for Dynasty.
What's the age on Kamara? Because Aaron Jones is 25. I'm not mad at a 25-year-old running back. Second contract, I hear you. But how old is Kamara?
Alvin Kamara will be almost 27 by the start of he'll be 26 and a half by the start of the season.
So just about 27. Yeah. You got to win. You got to win with that asset. No question about it. Russ, you have any thoughts on Mischief managed?
I haven't looked at his roster a ton. I don't think Logan Thomas is going to do as well as last year, but you're right. If he basically didn't have anybody, then go get someone. And Logan Thomas showed the ability. Obviously, they have a lot more mouths to feed this year than last year. So I think he was really was funneled a ton of targets last year. Wasn't overly productive given the number of targets he got, but I had Logan Thomas on a couple of my teams and benefited from that. Him, kind of rising from the ashes. So that works. Yeah, it's a solid squad. I thought Keenan Allen, I didn't expect Keenan Allen to do very well last year with Justin Herbert as a rookie coming in, and Tyrod Taylor, in the spot until his team punctured his lung. But you saw Justin Herbert target Keenan Allen a great deal, and he had a fantastic season. We'll see if Golladay can bounce back. I don't know what that Giants offense is going to look like this year. I think, based on my DK Metcalf conversation earlier, I think Russ is going to potentially have his best year yet. Again, that's a lot of conjecture. We'll see if that's really going to happen. But yeah, this is one of those teams that if again, I don't think he has a ton of depth. I think if we scroll down to his bench, I think that's probably where he's vulnerable, right? If one or two guys go down, I'm not sure if he has the horses to withstand that. But if they don't, I think he's got just about as much shot as anybody to take down the trophy next year.
And the one thing I will say in regard to the depth is his wide receivers, I think, are very good this year. The age thing definitely comes into play. But we talked about route running when we talked about Devontae Adams. Keenan Allen is a better route runner than Devontae Adams, and that's pretty well accepted across the league. He's amazing, and he's still pretty young, so that's a hell of a stock. But with the depth,
if you ask Keenan Allen, he's the number one wide receiver in the league.
I believe it.
Skill-wise, he might be. Yeah.
He was getting criminally disrespected heading into last year.
Yeah, I passed up on him on a couple leagues, and that was a mistake.
And Devontae Smith, speaking of people passing on him and it being a mistake, that was the NFL could very well regret, quite a few of the teams that passed on him. And I know a few of you guys definitely value him extremely highly. So that's a great depth piece, and it could be a right now piece for him.
Oh yeah, I've been hitting him up quite a few times trying to pry away Devontae Smith. He's not having it. Come on, Travis.
He is. I mentioned that he is a win now team, and he certainly is. But he's still also built with some really good. He is equipped with some really good draft stock coming down the road. Still has all of his original firsts and a few extra ones as well.
I'm curious with him too. Just curiosity. Where's the name Mischief Managed come from?
Mischief Managed is a Harry Potter reference.
That's why I wouldn't know. That's why I wouldn't have.
Russell Howell, come on, you should know that. I expect Nate to know that's not a reference, but you should absolutely know Mischief Managed is a Harry Potter reference.
No, sorry.
When they closed the Marauders map, they said Mischief Managed, and you could even see the little feet walking around on his sign here.
What the hell's a marauder?
Well, you don't have to be Harry Potter to know what a marauder is. Anyway,
I'm actually pretty stoked about the having another Harry Potter fan on the crew, but he's also been very active, and I'm excited the direction he's taken his team. Hasn't quite traded me back all my picks as I would like, but that's a good move on his part, of course, to hold on to him. All righty, let's see here. From here, I think we should go to either Matt or Simple Green. Where do you guys want to head?
Are we ranking? I mean, because
I'm ranking them.
Donnie.
That's what I was leaning
towards.
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. Donnie, I apologize. I know you're too busy. Donnie's too busy to ever watch this, but I apologize, Donnie, for forgetting about you there. I agree. I think Donnie is definitely who should go next here.
Yeah, I mean, with Dak Prescott, the beginning of the season that guy had, it was incredible. I remember watching that game where he broke his leg, and I couldn't wait to rub it in to Donnie. And then I realized I had Zeke. And
and Amari Cooper.
Yeah, well, Amari did okay after that. But yeah, that Dak Prescott, I think, has the ability to be the #1 quarterback this year. I really do. Montgomery, the guy got it done last year somehow, some way. He got it done, and the jury's still out on just what kind of running back he is. But he put up over 200 points last year. You don't do that on accident. I mean, and with Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, two very solid wide receivers. He's got a good shot this year.
Yeah, before we move on from Montgomery, you, Nate, recently placed a very big bet as far as allocating stock on the Bears going forward when you traded a first round pick in the 2023 draft for Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is a big argument in favor of David Montgomery continuing to improve as well.
Now, are you saying that because he's a running quarterback? Because I see that work out and I see it don't work out. That's not something in fantasy I'm willing to buy just yet, that a running quarterback helps the running back. Look at Lamar Jackson. It's not helping Dobbins any, so a jury's still out on that for me, whether that helps the running back.
The idea of a rushing quarterback helping the running back is more about X's and O's, about the D line needing to respect that edge and give the running back inside lanes they otherwise wouldn't have. But how they facilitate the run from there is obviously really what matters. But my saying that comes down to the Bears have had no quarterback. So if you're trading a first round pick for Justin Fields, you believe they now have a quarterback, at least in the near future. And if they do, then their offense is going to be a lot better. And if their offense is better, they're going to score more fantasy points.
One of the reasons I don't think that the Bears just have a good quarterback now, I think that the NFL has a big leader. Now, I really just like that kid. I mean, he was one of the reasons, him and Trevor Lawrence really is one of the reasons that college football even happened last year. The leadership skills that he's shown and are just remarkable, and the way the guy carries himself. I like him. Now, having said that, I used to think the same thing about Deshaun Watson too. So we'll see how that turns out.
I like Justin Fields. I do agree with you. It took a lot. If I wasn't in the spot where I'm at franchise wise, I probably would have just held on to him. You have any thoughts on that particular line of thinking there, Russ?
On which line? There were a couple ideas thrown out there.
The Justin Fields and David Montgomery line.
Well, David Montgomery, I mean, we know he feasted on some terrible run defenses at the end of the year. And that's where he kind of made his money. Cohen was out. And so Tariq Cohen should be coming back. I think he obviously ate into Montgomery's production prior to his injury. So it felt like a lot of things fell his way, but they're also talking about, he's continuing to build a skill set and he's going to be used more in the passing game as well. I'm really kind of 50-50. I feel like it could go either way for Montgomery. I'm not really a believer, but I see it within the realm of outcomes that he continues to perform well. When Nate was talking about Fields, I felt like he was talking about Russell Wilson because when you're talking about a guy coming in with that leadership and just.
No, I said someone over 5'5",
willing the team to win due to their moxie and leadership ability. That sounds like a Russell Wilson quote to me. And so good call picking him up.
And
Russell Wilson has the personality. I mean, leadership. No, disagree completely. Completely disagree.
You don't think Russell Wilson has demonstrated quality leadership on his football team?
Focusing on Donnie,
Mr. Unlimited.
Focusing on.
Are we talking about Mr. Unlimited here?
Focusing on the California Cowboys here, folks.
Oh, yes.
Donnie knows that his running backs are the weak point of his team. That's why he drafted Travis Etienne when he did. And there was a lot of talk about whether or not he shouldn't have drafted him, whether he should have drafted Jamar Chase, which I do think he should have done. But he knows the running back is his point, that he needs to get better. And that's because we already talked about it. Tyreek Hill is all of our consensus dynasty wide receiver 1. And so with guys with absolute studs like Hill and Mike Evans, and I even do like Gallup as a 3, but Woods is really his 3. Robert Woods is really his 3 in a much improved Rams offense. With Noah Fant, who Russ basically gifted to him in a trade. That was a horrible trade by you, Russ. And so like if the running backs come together for Donnie, he absolutely will be that contender that you said he is.
Like I said, sky's the limit for Prescott. I mean, it really is that this could turn into a league-winning team real quick.
Most
which
definitely.
I know Donnie would be happier than hell about.
Absolutely. And he's got the Cowboys D. I mean, he needs a new defense, but down here we've got some pretty good pieces that we didn't talk about as well. Blake Jarwin is a sleeper tight end on everybody's list. Kadarius Toney, a high upside wide receiver. Same thing with DJ Chark. You don't know if you can rely on him now, but looking at his team as wide receivers, he might want to start shopping some wide receivers to build up those running backs, because he's got a lot more wide receivers that we can feel good about, and he can feel good about in the long run than his running backs.
So we can't talk about Donnie's team without talking about how much I have tried to wrestle away Tyreek Hill to experience a Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey dynamic. And
well, that's what happens when you just screw the guy in trades. I mean, come on, Russ, you took total advantage.
I mean, I feel like Donnie is doing the league a service. I think it's 50-50 about him not wanting to trade Tyreek and him not wanting to let me have Tyreek for the sake of the league. So I think the league needs to give a tip of the cap to Donnie for his refusal to let me have Tyreek Hill. And yes, in one sense, it was a terrible trade. I gave Donnie Noah Fant for a 3rd round pick.
Horrible.
It's horrible value. But I have broadcast to the league that because there's no one to cut, there are deals to be had with Russell Howell at the conclusion of a season. And it also goes to show that when you're a really good person, sometimes people do nice things for you. And Donnie, I owe a lot to Donnie. So he can beat me on a trade every now and then. I can live with that.
And he is an absolutely fantastic person. There's no question. And it sounds to me like he really negotiated you under the table. You act like you were doing him a favor, but I've heard the trade talks from his side as well. You were trying to get more, and he was just like, I'll just wait until you drop him, man. Just go ahead, drop him if you don't want to trade him to me for nothing.
No, let's set that record straight. He used that line on me, but there was no way that was a totally different trade. There was no way I was going to let him win that little piece.
Sounds like some revisionist history there, Russ. You can rule the league, but you can't rewrite history. Not up in here.
Russ has his side of the story. Donnie has the truth.
Oh, guys, this is all right. You know what? Again, I love Donnie too much to get caught in an argument about Donnie. Fair enough. You want Donnie to win. Donnie wins.
Yes, indeed. So I disrespected Donnie in posing this choice to you in the first place, but Order of the Phoenix or Simple Green, who do you think we should choose next?
I would go with Simple Green.
All right.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right. Now, what can be said about Simple Green? I mean, the man, the sheer volume of trades that this man has made over the life of this league is unparalleled across any league that has ever existed, and I will put that statement up to any scrutiny that anybody would like, because he's just been wheeling and dealing constantly, and it's made the league a blast. He hasn't loved all the trades.
The Green is the funnest guy in the league, hands down. I mean, that guy is just fun to deal with, fun to talk to. I love Green.
Absolutely. I love Green.
He picks up his phone. You offer him a trade, whether he rejects or not, you get an answer in 5 minutes.
That's right.
What?
Tell your side of it there.
All I hear is, I'm driving, I'll get back to you. And then he closes a deal with somebody else.
Me.
I know. We usually go back laughing about that when he's telling you that as we're negotiating a deal.
I will say, I agreed with you until the very end. Recently, it has been harder to get Green to respond to my overtures. But collectively, 100%.
That's more of a personal thing, I think. I don't know.
It could be. I also have loved dealing with Green and appreciate what he brings to the league.
Most definitely, and he does have some really impressive pieces, but his overall chances to win need some bolstering if he's going to be able to kick down the door. I'd be curious to see if you guys agree or disagree with that, because I found myself in a similar spot to Green before I started tearing the whole thing down, which is what I did. We may not even get to my roster because there basically is no roster left. But Green, I think, is a middle of the road team right now that's trying to get up, because we have 6 playoff positions, and he's trying to do exactly what you said, Russ, get in there and then be able to catch lightning in the bottle and win, which he absolutely could do. But I feel like he needs a little bit more to be able to have a legit shot at that.
And I have no doubt that he will find those pieces he needs. I mean, the guy makes more trades in this league than anyone. And that's saying something too.
Yeah. Well, and I look at his roster. I like his roster more than I expect to. Right? I don't know, for whatever
Exactly.
reason.
Exactly.
He had a down year last year. I don't think he would say he's thrilled about his team right now. But then I look at it and go, that's a competitive starting lineup that he has right there.
It is.
If James Robinson isn't,
He's got 6 playable running backs.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Down here
If
too.
Sutton comes back healthy, and I know I'm throwing out ifs already. If Locke can throw an accurate ball,
Oh, he just needs Joe. Oh, you're talking about. Oh, I got you.
Yeah. There's good players there, and there's good players on this bench. So, yeah.
Sutton, you mentioned Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's going to be a big one for league discussion going forward because I believe Cortland Sutton is a stud, but he was involved in the trade that sent Terry McLaurin to Nate and a piece, and then he got a piece in addition to Sutton. So if Sutton comes back to being what he was before he got hurt, that could be a pretty good trade for Green. But if McLaurin does what Nate thinks he's going to do and becomes DeAndre Hopkins, and that could obviously be one that he looks back and wrings his hands a little bit.
Yep, we all have those.
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, I love Sutton. I think that guy is going to be a beast. I mean, I originally traded him from Green to, like a lot of players, trade him right back to Green. And I think Sutton is going to be just amazing. I mean, imagine if Aaron Rodgers ends up on that team, which is a possibility. It's a long shot, but it's a possibility. I mean, Sutton's going to be a beast. He's going to be unstoppable.
He's going to be almost as good as Jerry Jeudy.
Oh boy, I
don't know about that. Jerry Judy's got to catch the ball first.
Next time we all get on in front of the camera, we're going to be talking about your trade for Jerry Jeudy, Russ. That's for sure.
All right.
That is definitely for sure. But yeah, I like Cortland Sutton a lot. I actually told Green, and I still believe this. I don't remember. Actually, I don't know if I still believe it because I don't remember who the other piece was. Nate, do you remember what the other piece you gave along with Cortland Sutton was for McLaurin?
I believe it was our first rounder.
Okay, we'll see. Now that definitely could work out very well for Green in that case. That might be right exactly what he needed there.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, we're going to not do my team, by the way. I'd love to be able to hear what you guys have to say about my approach, but my team is basically barren. I have Saquon Barkley. Let's go ahead and just get that out of the way. I have Saquon and a bunch of scrubs. That's pretty much what my team is. But we're gonna, in the interest of time, have mine off and make some time for Order of the Phoenix and Bang Bang, which is what Blake Potter's name is.
I don't know if that was approved by the rest of your members of this team.
Feel free to squeeze it in there if you like it at the end there. I'm just thinking in the interest of time. But I mean, here the comeback player of the year award is Matt, because his team actually looks better than some of the ones we've been talking about in the last few teams that we've been looking at here at the top end. If you feel about the players the way I do, this is basically a team filled with players that Nate is down on, that Nate and I disagree on. In fact, on a number of them. Josh Jacobs, I absolutely feel that way. Lamar Jackson. These are players that I feel like could absolutely be huge years for Matt for him to get back into this thing.
Yeah, he's definitely got some good players on his team, and with high upside. I mean, Lamar Jackson, former MVP, just incredible runner. Still not convinced on his passing though whatsoever. And my feelings on Josh Jacobs. I just can't stand the dude, and I'm a Raider fan. I tried to be this guy's biggest fan, and the way he acts, the things he says, just get off my roster, dude. I don't like you. And his bench is got some good players, but I think the strength of his team is Lamar Jackson. He's got Williams from the running back too. So who knows how good he's going to turn out. Yeah, that guy's could really turn out to be a good player in this league, especially maybe not this year, but next year.
Yeah, his arrow's pointing way up right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Drake, I mean, going to the Raiders. I don't know. I really think Drake and Jacobs are pretty much the same guy. and I just don't know how that split's going to work. I almost would rather have Drake. I just don't like Jacobs that much. I really do.
How do you feel
Him
about
telling
that one,
fans
Russ?
to meet him at the fans to meet him at the stadium to fight him. You know, that crap he pulled in the fantasy playoffs last year, telling everyone he's not going to play. I mean, the guy's a dick. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, you're going to find dick moves all up and down these rosters if you're really looking hard for them. But as far as outlook, Russ, do you agree with Nate that Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake are basically one and the same and are going to wash each other out?
Well, I don't know if they're one and the same, and I haven't followed Josh Jacobs very closely. I don't like the Raiders, and I don't like Nate's team. So Josh Jacobs has been dead to me for a few years. But even I know that they haven't utilized him appropriately, and so now you're adding more competition at the running back position. That definitely makes me nervous, and I feel like it's the same concern for Mostert, right? Like if he's getting the rock, he produces, but how often is he going to get the rock? How often is he going to be healthy? I think it's a tough call. But I think, as we go through everybody's teams, I think you look at the starting lineup and everybody has talent in the starting lineup. I feel like going through this right now, even I'm more convinced that it comes down to, what's on the second half of the page and whether people can now withstand a 17 game season.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's going to be tough. That's a good point.
Who's going to hold up? Because I like most of Matt's pieces in that starting lineup, and actually he has a lot of quality pieces on the bench as well. But I think this year more than most, perhaps that's going to be key, is who can stay healthy and who has enough depth to withstand the unavoidable injuries that will come. But I think Matt has improved his team. It's been great to see Matt get fired up and get more engaged in wheeling and dealing. Haven't heard from him for a while, so I hope we didn't lose him already, because that was fun to have Matt involved in making it happen. And I like a lot of the pieces that he's got.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear from him again here shortly. But yes, I too have been missing him over the course of the last week or two.
He does have the greatest kicker of all time.
Yep.
There you go. Young Hui Koo for sure. Yeah, and I do disagree. Anytime you guys want to err on the side of someone, err on the side of the Titans, but I do disagree on the Josh Jacobs, because I think what we learned about Kenyon Drake is that he's just a guy. We learned that about him last year. This stage of his career, my goodness, that guy got so many goal line opportunities last year. And if you swapped roles, as banged up as Josh Jacobs was, if Josh Jacobs was on that Cardinals team getting force-fed 1 yard carries from 1 yard out like he was last year, he would have had an amazing year. And Kenyon Drake just barely passed by. And I feel like Kenyon Drake is not that much of an upgrade over Devontae Booker, who they had last year and took a lot of touches away from Josh Jacobs last year. I think Jacobs was banged up, and there may be issues with his effort level, as Nate has brought up many, many times, and that may be what I'm missing in all of this. But I think if Jacobs puts together a healthy season, I think we're gonna see that he's, RB8 last
Booker
year.
looked like the better running back to me last year, which was crazy. That guy ran like his job was on the line.
So is Kenyon Drake better than Booker?
Yeah, talent wise, yeah.
John disagrees.
Not at this point in his career, in my opinion. Not in this point in his career. I agree with you though. He looked better than him at times, but Josh Jacobs still got the majority, still got the volume when he was healthy, and I think that's what we're going to see again. He's going to get the same sort of frustrating touches taken away from him by Kenyon Drake that he did with Booker, because they want to deal in that kind of volume. But if Jacob stays healthy, I think he's going to be a big time value where he's going.
My luck, Kenyon Drake will blow his knee out in the first preseason game, and Jacob will be the number one running back. Watch.
Yeah. Well, I look at Matt's team. I think Javonte is going to be great, and I look at his receivers, and I think all three seem to be on the upswing. Right? I think Stafford is going to be great for Cooper Kupp. Again, yep. I keep saying it. I think Waldron right now, I feel like he's going to be a boon for the passing game. And now Samuel gets to go to Washington. And I think at least while Fitzpatrick is quarterbacking, they're going to air it out. And he's going to get quality looks. So I think that those three all could offer him great value in production this year.
Absolutely. Big time agree. And we're having so much fun talking about these players and talking together that we're running a little on the long side. So I am going to make the the executive decision to block out my own team from this discussion. We can bring it back up the next time we get together, but I don't want to leave without discussing Potter's team, because obviously there's a rebuild in the works, and he has some pieces that can start that rebuild, and I'll let you guys speak a little bit more to it. But I would say, if I were Potter, I would be acquiring more future picks. I'd be doing what I've been trying to do the last couple of weeks, which is amass as many picks as possible. What do you guys think?
I mean, Potter's got a interesting team. I mean, he's got depth at running back. He's got Herbert. You can't go wrong with that guy. I mean, who knows how good this guy's going to actually be? I mean, how do you guys feel about Herbert?
I love Herbert.
Yeah, right. I mean, the guy's fun to watch, and he's so quiet and just gets the guy's like the Iceman out there. I mean, there's no smile on his face. He doesn't look mad when it goes wrong. He's just out there playing the game, and I've heard that he's a quiet guy, you know, and he's just one of those guys that lets his actions speak for himself, and he's going to be he's going to have a great career. Really,
yeah, Herbert's what's great about dynasty rebuilds is because he's exactly the kind of guy that you want to end up with. He wasn't a highly touted quarterback. I mean, he was a first round quarterback, but nobody expected this. The investment that Blake put in on him, he's gotten a huge windfall on him, and that's awesome for Blake going forward.
Yep.
Crazy how he got the starting job.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Russ mentioned it earlier. Yeah, absolutely. I believe that doctor was fired.
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
Again, I look at Blake's roster, and I feel like he has much more talent now than he did most of the year last year. Obviously, trading away Jefferson was a bold move, but Chris Godwin didn't peak the way I think we expected him to, but he's solid. Debo, if he can stay healthy, looked like a beast out on the field. Gesicki's decent. Marvin Jones could do well in Jacksonville. Corey Davis is moving on.
I think Marvin Jones
is up.
Marvin Jones is going to have a great year this year in Jacksonville.
I think he might. Tariq Cohen's back in the mix, and give Blake credit for holding on to Antonio Brown. I mean, as much of a
right
as he is, I couldn't believe that he remained on Blake's roster that long, and now it's paying off. And who knows, he may blow it up this year.
Yeah, his outlook is looking a lot more rosy than it had before. And to be clear, Blake's team, both now, especially as far as this year is concerned, but even going forward, is in a better position than my team is. When I say that I feel like he should pick up more future assets, that's just what I believe he should be doing, and build on the huge breakout that he had in Justin Herbert. And he obviously got two really, really strong young wide receivers like he did there, but he's still in a better position than I am, pretty much with Herbert alone.
Well, but you're amassing picks. You're making a conscious decision there to rebuild. Trying
to, and we'll talk about some of those trades next time we get in front of the camera here. We'll talk about some players that we feel like are going to fall off a cliff or already have done. But this has been a lot of fun talking with you guys about the state of the league today, and celebrating what we're seeing. A lot of cool little tidbits and debates along the way.
Yeah, this little how long have we been trying to get together to do this now? 2 years, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah, good times. It's fun to be able to talk about it. It'll be interesting to see how it goes forward, and we'll have to figure out, can we track if anybody even watches it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I look forward to hearing what the league has to say. I'll put some timestamps down as far as like when we start talking about what team, and maybe if I get really on it, we'll go player by player, but it'll probably be team for this first one. We're looking forward to the next one, guys.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kamish.
Yep, guys, that was fun. Good times.
See you soon.
Yep.